My name is Jonit Spiegelman. I'm a professional bass player and I live here in New York City, and I also teach at Lessonface.com. And I'm here to teach you how to play some cool grooves on the bass. So this video is actually time and fill number 2. On the first time and fill video, I showed a few techniques of how to work with the metronome. Use the metronome because it's a very important device to use when you're learning how to play, especially bass and drums and kind of like the rhythm section instruments. Of course, it helps with every instrument. But we worked on how to work with the metronome, but trying to not rely on it too much. So instead of using it for every beat and kind of like go depending completely on the metronome, we're trying to miss the 2 and the 4, or trying to miss the 1 and the 3, and at a certain point we're just trying to hit the beat on the 1, which really helped us to kind of meditate and draw ourselves around that 1 and have every other beat to be counted on us as the musicians, keeping it in time. So in this video, we're adding a little bit to it together with a really nice groove that I made you guys. By the way, we have a track and we have the PDF for you if you want to follow, for whoever reads notes and for whoever needs tabs and for whoever wants to practice it with the track after. We have everything in the link right here below. So the material that we're going to be adding to this exercises is a bunch of kind of more the performy, tony sound stuff, and then we're also going to do something nice with the rhythm, because that's what we do in time and feel. So the first thing I want to show you, if you can see the notes right now, I want to show you a few nice little tricks and little gimmicks that I put in my bass line to make it kind of extra groovy. You can see that this bass line is actually something that I wrote more in like the G minor vibe. It's not quite pentatonic. I added the major 13, so it makes it more of a Dorian. One thing that you can see in your notes that there's this little X. So this little X is very important. This little X is a dead note, which I use a lot in my grooves, especially when I play Motown, funky sort of stuff. So to create a dead note, you really just like place your hand on the strings and you pluck them. But you make sure that you don't press too hard, that you actually make a note out of it, but not pressing too lightly, because then you'll just miss it and you'll have the open string. So you got to place it in right, it's kind of a feel thing, so you got to put it in the right angle. And then you have this kind of like pucky sound. We use it kind of like in a rhythmic, drummy sort of feel because it adds a lot to the groove. So it's something that I use a lot in my playing, and if you don't, then this is something that will definitely add a little extra layer to it. So we have the dead notes. Sometimes you'll see that they're not, I don't emphasize them so much, I don't make like a big deal out of them, but if I'll try a little bit slower, it'll be. So you see that it's not a big deal. So yeah, that's one thing that you can practice a little bit before we play the whole groove. Another thing that I add is another cool technique that I've been explaining a little bit before in some videos. That's the hammer-on. So what I do is, instead of plucking each single note, which sounds very separated, I kind of make it, I make it legato, and it's kind of like when when a violin, for example, will use one bow for a bunch of notes all together. So it kind of makes the same experience, that there's not much of a break in between. So it's a nice little trick that I use. I even use it in the first part. You can see right after the dead note. I don't play that G, I actually hammer it on. It's a very cool little thing, but you definitely have to make sure that when you play this, you are in time, which happens to be why you're watching this video. But really, you got to make sure that when you play these, you can practice them with a metronome too on every beat, to make sure that whatever reason you use them, you're still like right on time and you don't miss it. Every single new technique that you put in your bass and your bass lines, every new sound, every new little gimmick, like I said, always make sure that it stands in time, because finger picking is one thing, hammering is one thing, dead notes, they all have to be within the grid. So that's the second little thing that I added. And then, so we have the hammer-on, we have the dead notes, and one more thing that's a little bit more of a bigger thing here in the exercise that I'm adding is fills. So we haven't really talked about fills in the previous videos because it's kind of like this extra, pretty big, heavy subject, because you never really know what to do with fills. So really there's two things that I want to mention here when I'm playing. I have two fills written in, and those two fills, as you'll see, it's not something that I'm coming up in the moment. Now, it might be that in other playing situations I will come up with fills at the moment, but it's definitely a great thing to practice before. You know, the fact that you improvise it on the spot doesn't mean that you don't have to like even try to practice it at home. You can always have this arsenal of fills and phrases that you can use every 4 bars, every 8 bars. Of course, don't exaggerate your use of them. And when you do them, you got to practice them in time as well. It's very important for the time is feel, because I see a lot of bass players try to go and play like, you know, a bunch of notes, and the more the merrier. But the thing is, if you don't hit that one on the next bar, then it's not really worth it, you know. So what I did is I contributed some fills. You'll see that there's two nice fills that I added in the end of the phrases. Again, they're all written down in the PDF that's attached right here. And when you practice them, it's just as important that you practice them on time. Okay, and so the fills we have. So what I'm using, I'm climbing up with the Dorian G, and when I'm climbing up, I'm doing the hammer-on, but you can see that it's a little bit more subtle. And then I'm adding this little tuck here. So I'm just like. It's another sort of hammer-on, I guess you can call it, that pull. I'm just going really fast to the next note. And you'll see that it has a rhythmic pattern to it. It's a triplet. So you got to make sure that this one also stays on time. It's not just a note that I add for decoration. It actually has a meaning within the fill. And the second one, we go up. Also another sort of hammer-on, but kind of like in the other way around. So first, I'm going to take the track that I have here. We have a cool little drum track that I made for this occasion. And we're just going to play the track the way it is, and then I'm going to bring in that time and feel factor, okay? So let's start with the regular track. So that was the regular track that we played with this groove. So of course, this is there's a lot of things that are happening in this groove. So the first time that you play this groove, I highly recommend that you don't do what I'm about to expose right here in the second part of the video. Just take this track and practice it. Now, if this is too fast for you, that's okay. I'd rather you not start practicing it fast. I'd rather you take it slow. Really, the hardest things to do is play something very, very fast and play something very, very slow. So don't take it down to like 30, but maybe take it to something like 50 or 55. This track is at 90. If you want to really nail it in once you play it, maybe you want to practice all the way up to 100 and keep on climbing in fives until you get there. So this was the regular track. Feel free to stop the video right here and get back to it later if you want to just practice the track for its own. Now for the time and feel element for this. So as I mentioned before, in the previous video, we were kind of like minusing, you know, the 2 and the 4, the 1 and the 3, and working in between them to make sure that we land right on time. So this is really the extra that we have on top of it now. So what does that mean? I have a track ready for you. It's going to wait on the Lessonface SoundCloud channel. You can go in through this link right here. And what's going to happen is I'm just going to mute some bars. So you're going to have 1 bar with the drum track and then 1 bar muted. and then another bar, another 2 bars with the drum track, and then another bar muted, because I want you to also switch around and not have the muted bars to be the same bars each time. I wanted you to work on every single kind of component of the musical groove that I just wrote. So what's going to happen is you're going to have to hold on the groove for yourself for a whole bar, and then when you come in, go straight on the 1. Okay, so this is not something very easy to do. So again, if you need some practice from the stuff that I gave you from time and feel from the first video, go ahead and do so, and then try to go for it. Now, I can tell you right now that the hardest thing about this is going to be playing the fills and landing right on the 1. So I want you to remember what I mentioned just a few moments ago, that fills, you know, what I really want you to focus on is that you start on time and you end on time. That's the first thing that you want to focus on. Now, of course, you want to have the rest of it on time as well. So as you keep on working on it, just try to have every note come up, but make sure, for example, in the second fill, right? So we have this. Instead of like waiting a long time on that G, I would rather you take the G of the first bar after, kind of like right on the 1, and don't compromise over it. Okay? So right now I'm gonna put the other track, and we're gonna see how this kind of works out. So yeah, you know, it's not an easy exercise to do. So if you don't get it in the first time, that's okay. If you don't get it in the second time, that's okay. If you get only like 2 bars out of it, 3 bars out of it, you know, just keep on practicing with this track. Keep on practicing with the advice that I gave you in the first time and fill video. And I can guarantee you that, you know, the more you practice it, the more stable your time is going to get. We're always going to need the metronome and the click to some extent, but it's definitely, you know, the more that we kind of can get away from it and hold our own time, then the better bass players we get. So I hope you enjoyed this video. And if you need anything, if you want to know anything more, you know, theoretically, how to write these grooves, if you want any more cool exercises, if you just want to get your bass playing to be better, or whatever instrument you play, if you seek for some more lessons for great teachers, then I invite you to go to Lessonface.com and book a lesson with me or some of the other great teachers that we have there. So thanks for watching, and I'll be seeing you soon.